So, second season of the podcast, Making Sales Simple, and I'm here joined with Meg Roundell Greene. Meg, hello.
Hello, so nice to see you.
Yeah, thank you for coming back. It's obviously
Yes, so
the
welcome.
first experience hasn't put you off, so that's good.
I'm coming back for more.
Yes. So really wanted to get you on the podcast. I wanted to get in, let's jump in all around the lovely subjects of pricing and
Yes.
money and everything to do with money. So no, we can't cover everything, but generally talking about it, thinking about your pricing, thinking about when to increase, what prices to maybe set an offer at, all those kind of good questions that come up for our clients. So I thought it'd be great to have your take on money.
Lovely. Okay, perfect. Shall I just kind of start with me and what I do, or should we just dive
Yes.
straight into it?
Yeah, no, please
Okay,
give everybody a little bit of an intro to you and then, yeah, let's dive straight in.
perfect. All right, lovely. Well, I'm Meg. I've known Helen for a few years now, but I'm a marketing and sales coach for service-based business owners, and I like to make things really simple so you can take action. And I love talking about money, and I love talking about pricing. So this is absolutely up my street. Can't wait to dive in. Where shall we start?
I think let's start with just the general concept of why we feel so uncomfortable about talking about money in general, because it comes up everywhere.
Yeah.
One of the things that I see a lot in coaching conversations, and you're probably the same, with your clients, is the money kind of thing just rears its head as soon as we get into sales conversations. Oh shit, I'm gonna have to talk about how much it costs, and like people dance around it, and then that causes a lot of doubt, and then the customer experiences that doubt as risk, and then we literally create our money objections just by the aversion of not wanting to talk about it.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe we could start there, and like, where does that come from and what can people do instead?
Yeah, so good. And I think that there's a couple of places that I'd like to go with this. But
Yes.
firstly, for women business owners as well, just to normalize the fact that we're not conditioned, we're not taught either to talk about money or taught that we are good with money. So
Mm,
it's really normal as a woman business owner to have something that doesn't feel like it's your thoughts about it. It's like this kind of recoiling away from talking about it just because of the way you've been brought up and
mhm,
conditioned. So that's like
mhm.
a whole thing. Let's not spend too much time there, but just know if you are a female business owner, it's kind of part and parcel, I believe, with all the money stuff we have to unwind in our heads before we feel really good and really confident talking about it. So
Yeah,
just know it's not you, it's the world. It's
brilliant.
not your fault.
Fantastic. That's a great place to
Secondly,
start.
um, the discomfort around talking about money is when we have a misunderstanding of the selling process. It's
Yeah,
when we think that in fact we're taking something from people instead of this is a fair exchange of value. Because when you think this
yeah,
is a fair exchange of value, it removes any weirdness around selling. But you can't get to this is a fair exchange of value if you don't value what you're selling. Does that make sense? So
yeah,
that can be just something to notice if you're feeling weird about talking about money or if you're feeling nervous about the price. Just examine your own thoughts and think, where do I feel like this is not a fair exchange of value? Not in a
yeah.
bad way, but just in a way of like, oh, I'm really curious to see where my thoughts are
Mhm.
about what I'm selling. Because when
Yeah,
you have amazing thoughts about what you're selling and you're like, this is an absolute steal, you don't feel that nervousness or anxiety around talking about
that's
money.
it. That's the badger right there, isn't it? That's it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think as well, with experts, entrepreneurs, when you've crafted something and you've been in an industry for decades, consultants, for example, like experts, you know your craft really well. We do this really weird thing where we're like, well, that clearly all that simple stuff isn't valuable. Well, it might not be as valuable to you, but remember the first time you learned that, it was like a mind-blowing experience. Your clients are back there, that's where they are, they don't know that, and that's why they're coming to you as an expert to get that insight. So when you devalue it, it's actually sometimes quite easy to do because you've kind of moved on and learn all this other cool stuff here. and like you think this stuff over here just isn't valuable, so we kind of discount it. And actually that's the very stuff, the most simplest like concepts that your clients need, that first step, that's what they're going to join you and learn, and that's super valuable. So no wonder we think sometimes that things are just not valuable, because we've sat in it for so long. So I think
Yeah.
remembering that that immediate, like, oh my god, it's amazing at some of the more simpler things and concepts that you maybe offer or sell or make, or whatever it is that you do in your offering.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's such a good point, because you do forget the basics and you do forget how impactful that can be to somebody else. And that comes from being in your brain versus being in your client's brain. So many of these problems can be solved when you have questions, when you have any doubts about pricing, about your offer, about how valuable. Don't think of it from your perspective. Your client literally doesn't care what you think, not in a bad way, but they care about themselves. They care about solving their problem. They want to pay you to solve their problem. So when you think about it from that perspective, that
Yeah,
shifts everything
yeah,
when you're selling.
yeah, and it feels easier as well. That feels
Yeah.
lighter. And I think you taught me this actually, so I have to like give you credit for this. If not, just take the credit. But if they're there in front of you, either physically or on Zoom, or they've picked the phone up, whatever the method is, the mode, if they're in front of you, they are ready to buy, because
Yeah.
people don't just come for like a whim and a maybe. They're like, okay, let's go and see what this is all about. You don't take that action. People haven't got time to waste on, like, if that's a bit woolly. So if they're sat in front of you, a really good thought is they're ready to buy, because it's true, they are.
Yeah, they're ready to buy. And any of the thoughts that you have about your price or being weird about your price just translates into them not being ready to buy, because there'll be something weird happening. You'll just stop asking questions, or you'll stop thinking about them, or you'll just hesitate, or you'll
Yeah.
believe me, I've done all of these things. I've like
Yes.
literally fudged the numbers coming out of my mouth and be like, "Bleh." Like that's a normal thing. So just know if that's happening, don't worry. It happens to everybody.
Yeah.
But the thoughts you have about your price is so important, because if you're not convicted and excited about this amount of money for this value, there's no way that they can be either.
Yeah, they can't go first. And this is the thing with objections and pricing. It's never price, it's always the thing that sits underneath it. It's the risk. This feels risky, or this feels unclear somehow, or like she doesn't seem sure. And nobody sits there and says this stuff. They're just like, oh, I'll have to go and think about it,
Yeah.
or I don't have the money. And actually, it's usually something we have generated in that conversation, because, like you say, we've broken connection, we've stopped thinking about them, we've got in our own head, we've started to really believe our thoughts about money, we back off, we don't ask the questions, we don't go out to bat for the client. And of course, is it any wonder that we then hear no's and and maybes? So this is like, if this is happening to you, like Meg said, it's like a really good source of inquiry to go back and just start thinking about, what is it that I'm thinking about my pricing and my
Mm.
client's
Yeah.
ability to buy and pay that.
Yeah.
That'd be
So
a really
good.
good place. Yeah. So let's have a little look at that then. So that's often where it all comes from. What should we do about pricing then? How, like, this is a question that you must get asked a lot as well. What's the best price to price? What price should I make for my widget
Yeah.
or
Well,
whatever?
and this is so good because it's so personal to you, because you're the person that has to sell it.
Yeah.
So it all depends on can you feel that today, if you were to go and sell it today, that would be easy. Not, and don't make it so easy that you're like, well, that's ridiculous. And that feels like it's going to be, I wouldn't like to sell it at that price. Don't choose that price, because, like you said, there's the kind of resentment factor that will come
Mm.
in and color everything that you do. So that's not a good place to be. But you don't want to be pricing yourself so high that you have to do a ton of work and put a ton of effort into believing people can pay that price and will pay that price. Because in that time that you spend trying to get yourself to believe it, you could be out making offers and selling.
Oh God, I love that. And that is going to get you closer then to actually saying the price that you really want. So if you
Yeah,
wanted to sell something at 10K or 20K, but you've never sold anything before, maybe choose a different figure that helps you to just get on board with it, make your first couple of sales. Because let's face it, however we think it's going to go, the first few times you sell anything is never how it
yeah,
actually goes. And there's always more stuff needed and stuff that catches you off guard. So like, imperfect action, aim for like the C or the B minus. Let's just get there and sell
yeah,
at that level, and then we can get better and more praise, and then we can feel more certain and convicted to increase the price slightly, and we can
yeah,
just keep doing it that way. Versus, I really want a 20K offer. I deserve a 20K offer. I want that now, and then like it just butting up against everything that's like the belief and the like uncertainty to get to that
yeah,
level. It's
yeah.
just way harder and it feels awful as well.
It does. And it's like you're having an argument, an internal argument, because
Oh, yeah.
logically your brain is like, well, the value, like if you're doing it based on how I price, it's always about the value of the result, not about you as the individual being able to charge a certain amount. So it's
Yeah.
just about how many people get most of the results that I'm promising. That's what you should be pricing on. But it's so hard to know that logically. You can be like, it's worth 20K, and then you can go out and try and sell it. But if you're literally wading through the mud in your brain of like, they won't pay this, I've never been paid this before, there's not people out there who have the budget, you're just making yourself work like 10 times harder through all of that, and you won't show up with the confidence and ease that evidence actually gives you. Because when you have evidence that people pay you, it's
Yes.
so much easier to believe than trying to just conjure it up in your brain. You
Yes.
can, it just takes longer, and you don't get paid for
Yeah.
longer. So I'm always a
Literally.
fan of just like making it easy. Pick a number that you can go with today. Like I was coaching a client about this the other day, and I was like, just what feels easy to you? And she just said £1,000. I was like, perfect. It's £1,000. Like that's the price. You don't have to overthink it. Just make the decision, and then
Yeah.
don't unmake the decision when you're faced with a difficult conversation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really good one, because I think that whole like, if they have any objection to that, clearly it was the wrong price for me to choose. And it's like, whatever price you choose, you're going to have people that have some questions or some thinking on what you've
Yeah.
just said. And nothing's gone wrong. That's like completely normal and natural. So I think that happens a lot for people, like, oh shit, they said yes too fast. Damn it, I should have been more money. Or
It's
like,
like
oh,
selling your house, right? Have you
yeah,
ever had that thing where you're like, you've sold a house and it was like gone the next day, and you're like, oh, I should have put on another, whatever, 50 grand. Don't think about that with your pricing. Take every win as that's amazing. That's clearly the right price.
yeah,
But then
yeah,
take every objection with, this is the price I love, and here are all the reasons I love the price. Now it's just my job to communicate why it's worth it.
yeah.
That's the work. Don't change the price, change how you communicate the value.
Oh
And
my
so
God, I
often
love
we
that.
go to changing the price thinking it's
Yes.
going to solve things, and it doesn't ever solve anything, does it? It just means you earn less, and you
Yeah.
still can't sell at the lower price because you're not actually addressing the root cause of describing the value.
So, thank you so much for coming on, Meg, and sharing. I know money's a huge topic, huge, but I just wanted a really actionable, like, snapshot of how people can think and take a different view on money. So this has been super helpful. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Making Sales Simple, a podcast by Helen Tebay, the sales lady. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow me on Spotify for more.